So if somebody is saying something to you about who you are that you're outraged about, stop for a minute. Got to ask yourself, what does it mean to you? Are you confronting something about yourself that is hard to look at? Or are you so emotionally dependent on their validation that because they're not approving of you, you're thrown into a crisis and you panic? But understanding our reaction to a projection is also the other side of this coin.
Welcome to Emotional Sobriety. How's everything going?
So far, so good here.
Yeah, happy holidays, Patrick. The season is upon us.
It is, and I want you guys to know that I have some Christmas presents already wrapped. When I say under the tree, we have a small tree because cats will attack, and if we learned a long time ago, if we put up a big tree, those cats see that as they should. I've got a good head start on the holidays and gift giving, and I'm excited about it this year. I'm in the mood.
That's good to hear, Tom. That's good to hear. Yeah, I'm excited today. We got our tree today, and the kids are downstairs as we talk, starting to open up all the ornament boxes and getting ready to decorate the tree.
That's cool. That's cool. That's got to be interesting for you, though, Alan, because you've been through that before. And it's been years and years ago with your adult children, and it's like it's. I don't know. Just say something about that. I'm just curious. How is that to experience it? I can't be re-experiencing it because you're a different man now than you were then.
Very different. It's. You know what I love about it? I love the sparkle in kids' eyes as they think about Christmas.
Yeah.
Or Hanukkah, whatever they celebrate.
Yeah.
It's such a magical time of year. Funny. I was telling you guys about that show that you've seen, Magic for Humans.
Yeah.
And that this time of year is a magical time of year for so many kids, and it's such an exciting and time of the year to celebrate, to enjoy each other with, and to have good fights with. My God, there's some good grinding that takes place during the holidays.
That's absolutely. It's I have a handout that just remains on my download page always now. I used to take it off and put it back on in the holidays. It's just a 2 or 3 page thing called Help for the Holidays. I often talk about going to see family during the holidays as therapy field work. It's like it's time to go on a little field trip to see what we can see. And and I don't know about you guys, but I'm probably sure this is true. Just in case you forgot how you got to be the way you are, go see the family.
I love that line that Ram Dass has. He says, if you want to know how enlightened you are, go spend a week with your family.
That's it. That's it. Exactly.
It's a great line.
I feel a little better equipped to do the holidays now than I did a few years ago. And this may sound overly simplistic, but I think just gratitude at being here and being conscious and just being able to sit with friends and family, or, whatever the loved ones that I happen to be with, this time of year, and just bask in it. This is like the first time in my life when I've been able to do that.
Well, absolutely. And one of the things too that we're here to talk about emotional sobriety. We're talking about I love the idea that we use Bill Wilson's terminology and calling it the recovery's next frontier, because I think that's what it is. And but as the three of us are, we're all recovering addicts. That's the doorway we got in. We got into this process with is. This is also a time to really go back and be grateful about that, and also just to be sure I want people to hear who are, and it doesn't mean that it has to be early in your recovery. Sometimes you can just come around and the holidays are trickier than other times for recovery, whether that be substance abuse, alcoholism, whether that be certainly eating disorders. I work with eating disorder people a lot. It's a very treacherous, difficult time, but any number of things. And just so I'll just speak from the point of view of being a recovering alcoholic. I just think back in terms of gratitude. What you're saying, Patrick, is and realize that I didn't even know in the old days, how much more tension, how much more difficulty there was for me, because there's so much permission to what I discovered. There's so much permission to be drinking during these times, and I think this is the case where I see there's a parallel with people with eating disorder recovery. There's there's so much permission to even be outside the bounds of what we normally consider okay. In my addiction, I was always going to take full advantage to everything I perceived as an opportunity. And so it really made things difficult for me, and it made things difficult for people around me. And my God, just the idea, even all these years later, just to be reminded to be grateful for how much simpler this is. The question, I don't have to be in conflict about to drink or not drink, to use, to not use, because, and I support that one day at a time. I don't take it for granted. But the truth is, that when that question comes up, it's really dispatched quickly, because I already have the answer. I don't drink. I don't use, I don't partake of that stuff. And, and it's so much nicer.
And it was hard fought, and I love, it's a beautiful way you talk about that like, that was a battle, but you made it. So
each one of these days, including Christmas Day, including, certain days in any holiday, it's just 24 hours. It's just another day, another 24 hours. Just get through that day. And, and I tell my clients sometimes, it's like, if you need to forget sometimes that it's a holiday and just get through, go ahead, put it aside and just get through this day, because I'm going to feel better when I get to the other side of it.
See, the exciting thing I feel about this time of year, especially with the gift that emotional sobriety gives to us, it was really well described the other night in our Thursday night meeting, when that grandma came on and she said, I was with grandchildren, and here I am, I'm sitting there getting all upset and angry and disturbed at how my kids are treating their kids.
Yeah.
Remember that when she shared that?
Yes. Yeah. Oh yeah. It was wonderful.
And then she says, because I've been coming to these meetings, and I have this information that if I'm upset, I got to check out what's going on with me. So she reached out and called somebody that had also been going to the meetings, and they sat and they unpacked her disturbance. And she realized that they were violating her unenforceable rule on how they were supposed to do things.
They weren't.
And then she examined the should she had and realized, you know what? I think what they're doing is a lot better than what I think they should be doing in terms of how they're dealing with the kids.
It was beautiful. It was beautiful. And
that's the gift. See, that's the gift that we have been given with emotional sobriety, that when we hit a disturbance,
right,
that we have some methodology in terms of what to do with that, instead of just getting mad at the situation, blaming ourselves, blaming others. We have a way of getting our emotional center of gravity back.
If I were going to choose like maybe one thing that we emphasize more than anything else, it's practice. In 12-step terms, it works only if you work it. But it reminds me of times in therapy where you realize that your client is making all this progress because you're not having to work very hard. I always say we learn from how we fuck things up, and I have a lot of material for that. But we also learn from things we do right. And that becomes the bigger challenge sometimes, is to recognize when it's not just, well, I'm glad that worked out. We'll say, I'm glad that got better or that worked out. No, it didn't work out. You did what you needed to do, and you were a part. I'm not saying you did it, you controlled the whole thing, but you were a part of the solution. And that was a beautiful example of that.
Yeah, really a great example of it. And she said that. She says, my God, I achieved a certain emotional freedom from that I've never experienced before in my recovery. And I think you had several decades or something like that, 26 years in the program. So that's the exciting thing about emotional sobriety, right? It is giving us a gift. And these things, they feel magical when they happen, because they do, right? It totally turns everything on its head that we thought we knew, that we thought was the truth. And to me, that's the exciting thing. When I see somebody come in or share like she did with so much excitement about what she discovered, man, that makes it all worthwhile, doesn't it?
Yeah, and talk about we're playing with the theme of magic based on what's the name of the show, Magic for Humans, we're talking about on Netflix. Yeah, it's the magic is sometimes happens at the time that you're experiencing it. The other thing though is because the best insight is always hindsight. Very often the magic comes a little later. And what happens, and I think that might have been a case of that, but what happens is when you're talking with somebody else and you're looking back and you're describing it, then you see the magic. Then you go like, oh my God, that was recovery. Because one of the things we always talk to people about differentiating from their disease, from their saboteurs, all that stuff, and we do that because those are not actual, in my opinion, a lot of those things are not actual authentic parts of themselves. The recovery self is absolutely a part of yourself, and therefore it comes in, and it takes a little extra effort to pay attention and differentiate that a little bit so that you can see, wow, there's a new, and it's not, and I don't think the recovery self is a new thing for anybody. I think it's the wisest. You always talk about the wiser part of ourselves. I think it's basically more, the better metaphor is an atrophied muscle, that hasn't, we haven't had, the negative and the sabotaging culprits have had more credibility, but when you start to listen to that it's quieter, but it's a very powerful voice that will tell you. And what does it start with? I love that. I'm going to go back to this example you're using, because what it starts with is something we really need to hear in the holidays, because a lot of times we get more afraid of interrupting our friends and not bothering them during the holidays. It starts with getting support. Make that phone call. Get somebody. Just remember that none of us can do this alone. None of us have. None of us will. It's like, we use each other for that kind of support all the time.
Yep. No, that's really right. That's what she did. She knew something was off, and she couldn't unpack it herself. And she got some feedback from somebody that had been doing this work. It's like turn to somebody who has something we want, right? That's what
that's right.
And that's what she did. And it really paid off for her. And it was such a great example of, like I've been saying, the gift of recovery. Now, the other thing is that this is what we were going to talk about today, Tom. And I do think it's also a timely issue, because as you said, a lot of things get activated during this time of year, right? Because there's just a lot of hopes and expectations and feelings, and some people have very fond memories. Some people that grew up in an abusive home or with alcoholism just remember being terrorized and disappointed at this time of year. So there's a whole range of experiences that people have. Now, the good thing is what we keep talking about. Emotional sobriety is a consciousness of emotional freedom, right? A consciousness that creates an experience of emotional freedom. So, how do we get there? Well, we've talked about one thing is, as we say, if you're disturbed, as Bill said, try to understand, what's underneath that, right? That's what that process is. What's going on that's causing this. Now, another thing is to understand this psychological mechanism called projection. And that's what we're going to focus on today.
Yes.
And I loved, so Fritz Perls, who was the founder of Gestalt therapy, he had an interesting idea. He said, I differ a little bit with Freud, because Freud felt like repression was our primary defense mechanism, right? That people used repression to deal with the disturbing experiences they have, is push it down, void it, don't deal with it. Fritz believed that projection was the number one mechanism. Now, what's the difference? So they're both dealing with something that is uncomfortable, that is disturbing. But with repression, you stuff it, right? You bury it. You somehow, sometimes even try to disconnect yourself from it, compartmentalize the experience.
Yep.
Well, with projection, what we do is we take what's going on with us that we haven't come to grips with, and we give it to somebody else. It's like we make a gift of our unwanted psyche to those people we care about, right?
Now I see the theme for the holidays. Here,
I got some under the tree for you. Here's projection.
Right. Here's my gift for you, Alan. I think you're an asshole. It's like what? No, that's perfect. You know, the thing I jotted down as you were saying that too, and I never thought about it this way. I'd be interested in your thoughts. Is when you and this is oversimplified, but so is a lot of my thinking. But rather than stuffing something down to just your left knee and trying to forget about it, it's like, it occurred to me when you were describing the Pearl's difference with that was, well, in that way, again, it's a little bit more of a positive slant, even in the midst of the dysfunction and, you know, in the toxicity. I'm trying to do something with it.
Yes.
I'm trying to manage this. I'm trying. It is an unconscious thing, but there is a part of me at that level that is aware that this is here and I need to do something with it. So I project it onto you.
Yeah, I don't like it, so I'm going to give it to you. Right? It's like
item,
right?
But there's movement. It's not, you know, because I'm always talking to people. I say, you know, as long as there's movement, we're cooking. You know, it's like I'm always, one of the main things I look for when I'm working with folks is, are we stuck? You know, and that includes me as a therapist too, because you know this experience as well. So, you know, especially once you've known somebody for a while, when you think about in terms of just the relational part of therapy, we're part of that system. And so sometimes our own codependency becomes a factor. Sometimes, you know, our own projections can become a factor, that kind of thing. But we can use all that. But if we're stuck, that needs to be the priority of our attention. We need to get things moving. And, you know, and it may seem kind of like sloppy therapy, but I'm going like, I don't even care what movement we have here. We just need to get something unstuck and moving. And then because then I have a lot of confidence that we can figure it out together. If I've got a client that's working with me, collaborating with me, we'll figure this out.
The way Fritz described it, which I loved the metaphor he used. He says, imagine that we're all living in houses and they're lined with mirrors. Instead of wallpaper, they're lined with mirrors.
Mm-hmm.
And we constantly think we're looking outside and we're seeing the world.
Yeah.
When what really happened is we're seeing ourselves. And I think that this is a very important part, because we've got to remember this ties into the syndrome we've talked a lot about that makes us take things so personally, is that it's all about me.
Mm-hmm.
And see, it is all about us. There's no question about us, but we don't realize what that means at times.
Right.
Like you said, if I'm seeing everybody in the world as an asshole, guess what? That means that somehow I'm not dealing with the part of me that's an asshole.
Right.
And that when I come to grips with that, then I don't see that as such a prominent characteristic of my environment or the people in my environment.
Mm-hmm.
And see, that's the other thing, is that when we, you know, integrate a projection, then all of a sudden it loses its power. It's no longer controlling us the way that it controls us before. You Prather, you like him a lot too. He wrote that book, Notes to Myself, right?
Oh, love it.
I'll never forget when I read that. I was newly sober. I had about a year in sobriety, and he was writing about, I realized that when I really don't like someone, and I mean, I really don't like them, that what I'm seeing is something about me that I haven't come to grips with.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm telling you, see, that's the same thing Bill is taught. If I'm disturbed, there's something off with me. So this is another possibility. If I am seeing something in the world that really turns me off, disgusts me, I can't stand, or if I see another person and how they behave, they're selfish or self-centered, it's very likely, have a reasonable suspicion that what you're seeing is or struggling with is your own selfishness that you haven't dealt with.
Absolutely.
And projecting that on someone else.
I used to do workshops with a wonderful therapist who did dream work with people. She really specialized in that, and we did these dream groups and dream works and stuff. And the private, there's all kinds of ways to work with dreams, but the most powerful way I've ever seen is the way that I learned from her, which was to see every person and every object, every detail of your dream as an aspect of yourself. To anybody who is saying something that I certainly have said in my head at times with that is, well, wait a minute, maybe that person really is an asshole. It's like, sure. They're the best. Assholes are the best people to project that onto, because it'll fit fine. If you want to get irritated at something about somebody something about distraction, project it onto me. I distract everybody on everything. Forget about having some kind of objective truth about this. Well, what Freud thought or what Pearl thought or anything. This is a very powerful technique for personal growth. It's like, even if you do it, act as if you are the person who has the issue that you're upset with another person. And if you do that, you'll process that. The result, in my opinion, is far more often than not going to be exactly what you said, is that they're going to find that has less energy, and it may even dissipate.
We have a lot of tricks of the trade to help people understand.
Mm-hmm.
Protection, right? That's one of them that you just talked about. Becoming that person, and now we're talking as though you're that person and describing yourself. And when I have people do that, all of a sudden at some point they go, "Uh-oh, I think I'm talking about myself." I mean, and see that's the difference. See, Freud, when he talked about projection, thought that it was all unconscious. The difference with Fritz was he didn't look at consciousness as a vertical thing. He looked at more horizontally. What it meant is that instead of us repressing things that we're not aware of, is that we don't look at things we are uncomfortable with. So they're still part of our awareness. We just don't want to own them. And so oftentimes when we get a person, let's say, to play that person that's an asshole, let's say, that one moment they go, wait a minute, I don't know if I'm talking about myself or that other person, right? It's all of a sudden now some of that stuff starts to get assimilated, right? Gets integrated, and they lose the sense that it's the other and see that they're talking about themselves.
Well, the other piece that is, and maybe this is something I should have gotten a long time ago, but that distinction between the vertical and the horizontal is so powerful to me, because what you just said is, because I'm a sucker for anything that becomes a continuum. It's like it's like because what that takes us out of the black and whiteness of things. It's like. So what you're actually saying, and it just fits perfectly when I install it in my thinking, is, so what do we do? Well, one of the things we do is we have conversations about this stuff in a way that's kind of in a neutral zone, factual. We talk about this. We make room for it being safe for us all to have all these flaws and everything like that. And so what we're doing is we're nudging that stuff on the continuum into awareness, into more clarity.
You and I know this, and you've said it and I've said it. I don't tell my client anything that they don't already know.
Right.
I help them reveal their truth to themselves.
Yeah.
And see, this is where I think Fritz was so right on, because when you think of consciousness on this now horizontal plane, it means there's things I'm aware of and things I don't want to be aware of.
Perfect.
Right?
That's great. Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
And
things. Okay. Let's say that again. Things I'm aware of and things I don't want to be aware of.
And then we take those parts of a person that they don't want to listen to, that are talking to them all the time. And you and I, how many times do we see these parts that a person doesn't want to listen to? They have something important to contribute to a person's life. But because the person's ignoring them and alienating them from their conscious self, right?
Right.
They're not able to integrate their wholeness, right? They're not able to integrate these other parts of ourselves. You and I have always said, in every disturbed behavior, there's a positive intention.
Absolutely.
Every disturbed behavior.
Absolutely.
Sometimes we
Absolutely.
don't understand it. We may not be aware of what it's saying because we push it away. We say this is good and that's bad, right? And so we don't want to go to the bad. But when we get rid of those labels and we start to say everything is information, let's start looking at what do you not want to talk about today. I love saying that to some when I'm running a group.
Listen,
I love to start the group off with say, all right, I want everybody to share one thing that you don't want to talk about in the group today.
this is collaborative. It's like I love it when I get involved with this stuff and my client is the one to point out where I'm wrong. It's like, good. I love that because I go, oh my God, I've been missing that point all along, but you got it.
Yeah.
And go with that. That is such the collaboration is what really pays off.
Yep. Right on, Tom. So the other part I want to bring up. So one of the things we're asking you to do is try to be aware if there's something going on, someone in your environment that you really don't like, see what you might be projecting, right? Have a reasonable doubt that you're not just seeing them, but you're seeing something in yourself that you haven't come to grips with, that you haven't come to peace with, or that you're not dealing with. So here's the other side of this coin. So later on, I think it was more the object relations folks, they started to have this idea that there was another mechanism going on in a relationship. So if I project, Tom, you're an asshole onto you, and you take that projection in, they called that a projective fit, meaning that you agree with me, essentially, right? And so now you're off on the races. Now you're dealing with your own feelings about being an asshole and not liking it or either resisting it. How dare he call me that, right? Pushing it away or taking it in and say, yes, I'm the worst person in the world. I'm terrible. What'd you call it? Negative arrogance, right?
Right. Right.
Oh my God, I mean, nobody else is as bad as I am and everybody's terrible and I'm the worst human being that's ever existed. That kind of a thing, right? So this projective fit is the other side of this. So if somebody is saying something to you about who you are that you're outraged about, stop for a minute. Got to ask yourself, what does it mean to you? Are you confronting something about yourself that is hard to look at? Or are you so emotionally dependent on their validation that because they're not approving of you, you're thrown into a crisis and you panic? But understanding our reaction to a projection is also the other side of this coin. That's equally as important as owning your projections and owning what we call in psychology your projective fits, right? How that projection may fit inside of you.
Yes.
So this becomes the other side of the coin. And I think it's very important as we talk about this is to understand both sides of the coin offer us a very important opportunity to grow ourselves and to become more of what we can be or to become more whole. See, that's the way I like to think about this because always the disowned parts of myself fragment me. I operate, when I operate from all of me, then I'm operating from the best of me. When I'm only operating from parts of me, I'm going to be incomplete in my ability to deal with a situation. What do we say? A broken clock has the right time twice a day, but it's just for twice a day. We want us to be able to tell the time, whatever time of day it is. And to do that, we have to now do this work that Tom and I are so committed to is helping people find a way to deal with this civil war that goes on inside of themselves.
Man, I have not either remembered or didn't know the term projective fit.
My civil war is ongoing, and I've felt stuck this morning. I felt stuck the last couple weeks. I've been doing the work very imperfectly, but I just hope that if I continue showing up and listening, that some of this will work its way into my daily practice. And by daily practice, I just mean from when I have my feet at the ground in the morning to when I turn in at night and all the things I do in between. I'm very much still in the antietam stage of the Civil War.
There's a lot there that you feel like is applicable that you're going to be able to make use of.
I think so. And, I think that what Alan just said brings a lot of it together, which is we need to integrate all parts of ourselves in order to be fully answerable to the situations that arise. The key to understanding that is just to mind your reactions. What you're bringing to a situation, there may be things mixed in that you're not aware of. What emotions may be coming up, what you might be projecting onto that other person or situation that could add quality to, you know, the way that you're proceeding through the world and these interactions with people, places, and things.
Yeah, and I want people to know too that a very appropriate and very often powerful response to recognizing our reactivity in a situation is to consciously move into an observer's position. You know, be the and when I said I became kind of speechless with what after what Alan said, it's because I had it's one of those deals where it's like the Three Stooges trying to get out of the door at the same time. You know, it's like I had so many thoughts going that it's like it just it wasn't silent in my mind. It was noisy because there were lots and lots of thoughts that had been given. And so one of the things I've learned about that is and I say this to people I work with relationships all the time, but the same thing applies to intrapersonal relationships is when in doubt, slow everything down and observe. This is where journaling is so fucking powerful. It's like I used to feel like I was being pushy when I would talk too much about or so much about journaling because I thought maybe I was putting down on other people because I'm a writer but what I've discovered is even people who are not naturally writers or don't have any interest in writing, the whole process of journaling is one of the most powerful ways of slowing everything down and creating some observation. And tell me if this is not true for you, Alan. I've had a couple of examples of this recently. When we get people writing, when it applies to us too, but when we get to writing, it's like we can start and talk about some of the most negative things, some of the most, the trash talking parts of ourselves. But if we write and kind of do that as a regular thing, that recovery voice is going to show up. It comes forward eventually. That person who's doing the journaling, I sometimes am the one pointing it out to them when I'm hearing what they've written. But it's like if you give yourself the time to actually just pay attention and do this, you're going to get, well, everything is information. You're going to get more information. And spending time observing yourself, I say to Patrick and to anybody else listening, it's like I don't know if there is anything more valuable. Yeah. Just being observant. You don't have to put it together. It can be just puzzle pieces all over the damn place. But if you're paying attention, you're looking at them, you're learning, you're coming up with ideas, hypotheses, whatever.
Well, for me, I mean, there's no harder thing in the world because I want to pay attention to myself, but I also don't want to have my head up my own ass. I want to just try and remain flexible. I think that
getting your head up your own ass actually calls for a great deal of flexibility if you think about it.
But Patrick, you listen, and you can hear it in your voice on how disappointed you are in yourself.
Yes.
Right. You really have this idea that you should be further along. That you should have mastered this stuff more at this point in time. So just be aware of that there's that part of yourself that has a very high expectation of where you should be at. And see, that right now is probably more important than anything else for you to get a handle on, is to take on that part of you. And, I love what Tom said. If we can lower the bar every day, mm-hmm. in terms of our expectations, then as soon as my feet hit the floor, I've made it. That today is a success. Anything else that happens just happens for today. Yep, but if I can roll out of bed and put my feet on the floor and go from there to get a cup of coffee, this is it, baby. I don't
Alan, that's it. This is interesting. This is like group therapy right now, because this comes together from with what Patrick was just saying, and what you just reminded me of is this this is what I think about when you talk about, Patrick, that you seem disappointed in yourself, is that you know, recovery and peace and whatever, all the stuff we're seeking, it's not something we're heading toward. It's something that runs right down the center of us, and we're in and out of touch with it all the time, you know. And because when you're describing that, Alan, and when I'm thinking this is literally from this morning. This morning I get up. Mornings are tough. I say this a lot. The mornings are tough for me. My depression, my negative thinking resets. I'm working on that. I don't think that has to always be the case. I'm not trying to affirm it, but it's like mornings are harder for me in terms of just, I'm not the guy that I like to be in the mornings. My negativity, a lot of stuff is there. And I was noticing that this morning, knowing we were going to do our podcast and stuff, and I had other things I was going to get done in the morning, and I stayed in bed, because I stay in bed sometimes to avoid getting up and having to face my thoughts, you know, when I have the time to do that. And I just remembered the thing we're working on is living in the moment is not a concept. Living in the moment is living in the absolute very moment is a practice. And so I began to do, and I was in the kitchen. I said, so I just began to narrate my day. It's like that I'm getting my second cup of coffee, and immediately realized that, or very soon realized that my anxiety was lowering. Okay. That's a technical thing. You know, we have a lot of different parts of ourselves, but we can only hold on to one conscious thought at a time. And that's the psychology of mantra. And it's like, if I'm narrating myself through my hallway over to the place where I'm going to sit down and do my morning reading, and I'm just saying those things to myself, it's like, does that mean, I changed my day and I'm having a wonderful day? Nope. It just means I'm fully present in the moment. And what it meant was I wasn't sitting there worrying about a bunch of crap that I had no control of from that moment. So it's like, that's shit we encounter on a regular basis. I mean, maybe there are people that are just far beyond me with that kind of stuff. But if somebody told me they don't have, you know, and I'm sure it's all different, everybody has their different stuff. But if somebody tells me, you know, I mean, you and I've talked about that, Alan, before. It's like, you know, the person in the self-help business or the therapy business that basically, you know, has an approach of, you know, yes, I understand, because long ago when I was fucked up like you know, it's like, I don't trust those people. I just, you know, maybe they got it, but it's like, I don't trust them. You know, if you or I want to give an example of how we fuck something up, we don't have to have a very long memory.
So look, Patrick, I do want to differentiate this. The part of you that wants to get better is healthy. See, the part of you that's saying, hey, yes, I really want to get on top of this stuff. I really like to be able to do this in. And so that part of what you're saying, if you could tease it out, right, from the expectation, is something you want to hold on to. I want to continue to grow. I want to continue to grow along these lines. But I will appreciate progress rather than perfection. See, that's why Bill put that in. It was so important, because we get that all messed up. We get messed up with the idea of striving for being this way, with that we have to be this way to be okay. And see, there's a real value. And see, in one way, I've sometimes cursed the people at Nike when they say, just do it. I believe in that. I think it's right. But also striving to do it, trying to figure it out. There's a value to not pulling it off all the time, because you learn through your mistakes, right? It's a series of, we call it successive approximations. You know, maybe every now and again I may hit the bullseye. Oh, by the way, you guys, I went to the Marine Corps Museum, and they have a rifle range in there. It's a virtual rifle range. But they had the old M16A1 that I had in Vietnam.
The one that you had, yeah.
I picked it up and I shot. I was at 300 yards, and look at my grouping after. Well, I was in Vietnam in 1970.
Oh my God, Alan!
Huh? Stone cold.
God.
So if I have a rifle and I'm pissed at you and you're running away,
that's where our great minds run along the same course. That was my thought immediately, was don't piss Alan off anymore.
I said, why are you showing this to me? Are you trying to tell me?
That's right. No, but to have that level of mastery after all those years,
After all those years, man,
that's
that's how good the training was, man. I'm telling
wow.
you, every Marine's a rifleman. And I'll tell you, every technique, it was just all right there. Is you don't pull the trigger, you squeeze it. That you exhale out on the shot. I mean, all the stuff that I learned. And that was a damn good grouping. You know what? I got the same score I got in boot camp, marksman. Isn't that amazing? After
I'm
all
impressed, man. That's
about, I was so proud of myself. It was like,
That's right.
man,
That's
Berger,
right.
you still got it. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah. And see, Patrick, to drop, watch what, hey, watch this, watch me pull this back into our conversation. This will be like a magic trick, because see, Patrick, when you're off the mark as much as we all are in general in our lives, once we get the bullseye, we get to be that excited because it's so fucking rare.
Only one or two shots in the bullseye. Everything was in the black, but
Yeah.
I was close, right? That's what I'm
that's what I see is the middle of that area. Yeah. No, I see the damage that would be done to me if I was standing in the wrong place.
Well, thank you so much to both of you for helping me put this in a more helpful context.
I think you know this, but I really care a lot for you, Patrick, and I know Tom does too. And listen, our relationship, we've grown quite close to, together, as we all have. I mean, it's been this whole journey, Tom. I can say this to you as well. It's God, it's like I've enlarged my family. I mean, I've really enlarged my family, and now I've got a family everywhere. So it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
All right. Well, onward, Christian soldiers, right? We'll see everybody next week. And
next week is a really exciting episode. We're welcoming Dr. Peg O'Connor onto the show, and she's going to talk about her different relationship with the higher power, how she struggled with it, and some conclusions that she's drawn from the work she's done in addiction and recovery.
Peg's work is very important. So this will be a great show. See you then.
Tend your life, tend your myth, cultivate your narrative with whomever you're with. Then with glass in hand and children on one knee, bring some stories, bring your stories back to me. It ain't a crime to be a human. Never be ashamed to be yourself. Rest assured that whatever you're doing will entertain me like nobody else. So here's to us, my old friends, until it's time to drink the wine and break the bread again. With glass in hand and children on one knee, bring some stories, bring your stories back to me.